Well, greetings and salutations, folks. I hope everyone is still doing well, and welcome to this early morning, middle of the night bonus upload. Before we jump on into it, a couple quick links. As many of you may know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. The merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. These audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, these things, they really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to this early morning, middle of the night bonus upload, shall we? Tonight's first encounter. A bit of backstory. I work the graveyard shift in the North Carolina mountains. Working these dark hours kind of leaves limited things to occupy my time on my days off. Normally, I just go out driving or hiking, walking in the dark if I don't have a video game I want to play or a movie to watch. With this hobby, I often come across unusual things in the darkness. I've experienced things I cannot forget, or I hear things when I'm alone that make me want to faint. They all range from normal, scary, to downright terrifying paranormal, like this. This happened a couple years ago. I've been too scared to talk about it because every time I do, when the darkness comes, there's always a noise or a bad feeling that comes to me, and whomever I'm around, but I'll talk about that later. Well, it was my night off, and I kind of got bored with lying around watching YouTube while my fella slept. So, like most weekends now, it's getting warmer, I decided to go out for a drive. It was around 1 in the morning, cloudless, so I headed up the parkway like normal. It's bound to be a beautiful drive. Nope, it's closed. Well, dang, where do I go now? I think, oh, Pisgah Forest. I haven't been there since high school. Perfect, an adventure. And off I drive. It's around 3 in the morning by the time I get to the entrance of the forest. It's already looking pretty foreboding. The entrance is smack in the middle of a tourist tubing, ice cream, and souvenir haven, all brightly lit parking lots and cutesy signs. But the entrance is completely the opposite. It's a long, straight road with absolutely no lights disappearing into the night. Only campers go up there at dark. I didn't think much of it. It's nighttime, of course. It looks pretty scary. Everything looks scary in the dark. And up I drive. Everything's pretty normal for a while. I pass by turn-offs for picnics and campgrounds, all dark. But the higher I climb up the mountain, the more anxious I feel. Something isn't right. I'm normally fine in the night. It's my time. But something just feels off. I keep pushing on. The winding road climbs higher and higher. Forests all around me, thick and serene. The air is warm and smells good and musty. The only light around is from my headlights, but I cannot shake that bad feeling. I try to ignore it, thinking maybe it's just because I can't see the moon, like when I'm on the parkway. Yeah, that's gotta be it. But as the climb gets steeper, the more scared I get. My chest is tight and becoming painful, but I keep going, just trying to ignore it. I'm passing the waterfalls, hearing the water roaring out of sight. I should be relaxing, but I can't. After about an hour and a half, I notice the turnoffs are few and far between. I haven't passed any in a while. The pain in my chest is alarming me, and I'm considering heading back down. Suddenly, I smell something unusual. You ever remember being little and your parents having that particular smell that you remember, like a perfume or a cologne they might wear, that you immediately recognize into your adult years as them? Well, that's my dad. He was a factory worker, a smoker. So, from a young age, he always smelled of motor oil, harsh metal, coffee, and cigarettes. An odd combination, but it's him. And that's the smell I smelled. In the middle of the woods, with nothing but trees and clean air around, I smelled my dad. It was subtle, but I got the hint. I needed to turn around and go home now. I drove onwards till I found a safe place that I could do a K-turn. Around a tight turn, I found a good spot away from the guardrails and initiated the maneuver. Right as I got my car straight back out, I stopped dead. The smell of rot had flooded through my open window, and there, inches from my front bumper, was a creature. It was crouched down, looking at the dirt. The body, it wasn't right. It looked like a big hairy dog crouched on all fours, but the legs, they were too long to be a normal dog. My eyes moved up to its head, a human head, long dark hair, covering a face that I couldn't see. But its eyes, I could see them, and they met mine, a red/orange glow back at me. My heart felt like it was going to stop, and tears started filling my eyes. I hadn't been this scared in my whole life. My heart really felt like it was going to stop, and that horrible smell was suffocating. The creature started to move, and I didn't know what happened. It was like my body had flipped a switch. I was not thinking anymore. I didn't feel anything. I just stomped on the gas pedal, veered around the creature, and sped off down the mountain. I feel like I should have clipped it with my car. It was so close, but I don't remember recognizing that I connected with anything. I don't remember anything till my phone rang, long after I left the forest. It was my twin. She felt like something was wrong and had been trying to get a hold of me for an hour and a half. I drove to her house and explained the whole thing, waiting for the sun to come up. This has been one of the most terrifying experiences that has happened to me alone so far, and every time I tell someone about it, something unexplained happens. When I told my twin that night, she heard some banging on her closet door with no one or nothing inside. When I told my parents, my mom saw some red eyes in the woods when she went out to have a cigarette. When I told my fella the next evening, we both heard a crash outside, but when we looked, there was nothing amiss. Then, when I was leaning beside the window, I saw the curtain move in one spot. I felt a breath behind me, flipped and hid on the other side of the room till morning. We were on the second floor. I don't know if it's the same creature, and it somehow followed me across counties, or something else, warning me not to talk about it. So I don't know if anything will happen after I share this. I still do go out driving at night. That's by night off, actually. But I think I'm just going to stay home tonight and play it safe. Thanks for sharing this. Now, I am no expert, and I've never proclaimed to be. Actually, I feel like no one can be in the paranormal world. But that's just me. I kind of think this creature that she saw was a werewolf. The way she described its body and its legs, its face, it was all hairy all over with longer hair all over it. But it had a almost human-like face, and things that Victor had told us a while ago, that really kind of stays with the whole werewolf thing. So to me, it probably was a werewolf, but I'm probably wrong. I don't know. About the happenings after, or when this person shares the encounters, maybe this is just I don't know, some way of mentally coping, trying to scare yourself inside, or maybe there is some sort of kind of poltergeist or ghost activity in this person's home. I'm not really sure. I don't think the creature has any kind of attachment or whatnot cause to the experiences her family feels when she's done sharing the event. I could be wrong, but that's just my theory. Moving on. Today's second encounter. So I've had a few weird experiences from my grandparents' house here in rural Mississippi that I've never been able to explain. To start, I'd just like to say I'm a very objective and logical person. I'm not bragging. It's just my own personality that I recognize. If something happens, I'm generally never going to let it bother me or my mind wander too crazy in far-fetched places. The first experience was when I was younger, maybe 10 or 11. I was watching TV with my grandma. I called her Mimi. I thought everything was normal until I turned to look at her. She was staring right through me, eyes both dilated and glazed over. I asked, "Mimi," and she turned her head unnaturally quick upward and reached her hand up and said in a slow, soft voice, "It's so fluffy, soft, airy, touch it." And then slowly let her arm down and went right back to watching television. Obviously, I was in shock and even whimpered a little bit because I just couldn't understand what had happened. She heard me and asked if I was okay, and I just kept asking her what she meant and why she just did that, but she was just as confused as I was and just tried to calm me down. She didn't remember any of it. She was young for a grandma at the time and never showed any signs of dementia or Alzheimer's since. Nothing at all since that day. She's always been of sound mind. The next event took place a few years later. I was 15 at the time. My brother was 17, and it was pretty late. My grandparents' property is surrounded by woods on two sides, the left leading deep into a forest of evergreen, behind the house, short and ending at a lake with other houses within throwing distance. I've grown up my whole life in those woods, seen many critters, and never really afraid of them. It was more of a place of comfort and aloneness I liked, but I digress. Back to the experience. My brother and I were walking up a long driveway that ended at a road because we kept hearing noises like moving branches by the tree line and wanted to check it out. We both knew whatever it was in the woods, be a raccoon, possum, coyote, whatever, that logically we could easily overpower and kill it. On our way back from investigating, I heard walking behind us and turned around to see. It was pretty dark, and the only thing we had for light was a phone, which wasn't much. All I could see were two bright eyes staring back maybe 3 to 4 feet from the ground. I don't know what it was particularly, but even now thinking about it, just those eyes and its presence filled me with the most horrific dread. It's like all of my blood turned to ice, and I couldn't stop shaking. It wasn't just basic instinctual fear, it was absolute terror. I immediately grabbed my brother's arm, and we ran as fast as we could to our porch, which has a light and shines about 10 feet into the yard. Whatever this thing was followed us, and when I made it to the porch and turned around, it stopped just outside of the light, just enough to see those eyes. The way it swayed almost made me vomit. I've never seen an animal sway like that and move its head so oddly. This thing was too large to be a rabid raccoon or a coyote. My brother and I quickly got inside and turned off all the lights. Today's final encounter. It was 2011. I had just turned 21 years old and decided to pursue a new life in the mountains of Northern California, Redwood County. Prior to heading that way, I had accumulated quite a few irregularly experiences in my youth, ranging from odd dreams to seeing unexplainable entities in the middle of the night. I always had an affinity for exploring the unknown and was the type of kid in high school who studied UFOs, shamanism, the spiritual world, fringe things, you could say. When I was 16, my family and I moved to a small town near Mount Shasta. The house we moved into backed up to a canyon, which was essentially the foothills of a forest. that encompassed the majority of the wilderness of Northern California. At the time, I had no idea as to the mythological lore with which the region embodied. It didn't take too long for me to recognize that there was a strange energy to the place. The strangely mysterious and appetizing ambiance was met with my insatiable curiosity of the unknown. Anyhow, the one normal summer night, something strange happened. At that point in my life, I used to unjustifiably sleep with the TV and a fan on every night. Also, for a matter of setting and context, I always slept with my door shut at night. I awoke abruptly in the middle of the night to a pitch-black room in complete silence, TV off, fan powered down, the door wide open. Everything was completely silent. I peered out of my window, which was adjacent to my bed, and noticed that the lights were powered down in the entire area. There was an apparent regional power outage. It was at this moment that the faintest bit of moonlight illuminated what appeared to be a 7 to 8 foot tall thing standing in my doorway. I was immobilized by its baffling presence quickly after recognizing the sheer strangeness of this quick sequence of events. I rose to my feet and approached this thing to the best of my ability. As I got closer, I could see that this figure had a large head, an unusually thin neck, and no noticeable facial features. It was as though my operating system couldn't calculate what I was seeing. The shape of this thing's head and the height, as well as the lack of normal facial features, was such that I couldn't reduce it to a human description. It was in a category of its own. As I finally got 2 feet from it, it stretched its ominously lengthy arm towards me, and it began to sway, almost in a hypnotic manner. I vividly remember it panting heavily at me and moving its arms in jarring movements back and forth. Looking back on it, it reminds me of how a praying mantis makes hypnotic movements, something like that. The last thing I remember was trying to yell out to one of my parents, but they couldn't hear me. The odd part of this is that both of my parents were light sleepers. It was as though my voice was muzzled somehow. Anyhow, as I was trying to yell, I was also trying to push through this thing to get out of my room, to no avail. At last I broke through what I can only describe as resistance. The figure vanished, and I fell through the doorway. My mom rushed down the hall and asked what had happened. I was speechless, dumbfounded, and unable to sleep for a couple of days. Fast forward again a few years later, right before my trek back up to the northern part of the state, I started having a series of strange dreams. I'd been dreaming of walking along the redwood-laden ridgeline with a peak of the Pacific Ocean. What's most peculiar about these dreams is what else I was seeing in them. In the sky above the trees, light, orbs, crafts, whatever you want to call them. It was about a month or so after these dreams that I found myself on that exact ridgeline, witnessing some of the strangest things I had ever seen in the sky. Lo and behold, I found myself smack dab in the middle of Bigfoot UFO country, where UFOs also seem to be a renowned local highlight to all the overall high strangeness of the region. I decided to rent a 40-acre parcel in the middle of the redwoods. This particular piece of land was riverfront. It was beautiful, a masterpiece of landscape for $400 a month. About 45 minutes from the nearest town. I was in heaven. During this time, I chose to sleep out in my tent, as it was summer and the weather was quite cooperative for such an endeavor. That is, when the whirlwind of high strangeness really would occur. For whatever reason, I was obsessed with UFOs at the time. Little did I know I had situated myself on a gold mine. Within my first couple of weeks there, I had my first sighting. It was unexplainable. A silent white orb of light flicking on and off, which couldn't have been any more than 100 feet directly overhead. It was at that point that I had decided to spend the majority of most nights skywatching. So that's what I did. I was not disappointed at first. I had dozens, if not hundreds, of sightings that summer. So many different kinds. Every single night that was clear, I saw something. The white and blue orbs were always quite strange, how they would float in seemingly zigzag lines with little jolts of propulsion. The ones that seemed to mimic stars are baffling. I imagine they must have been huge and very far away. Many of these types seem to superimpose themselves between known points of constellations in the earth. For example, if you had been skywatching a particular region of the sky, you might see an abnormality pop out to you. You might see a star which you thought was a point of the constellation start to wobble and pulse around a bit. After a while of focusing on it, it would either flicker out or start to move on its own more noticeably, until it was completely out of sight. Then there were the kinds that I thought were shooting stars at first. What obviously differentiated them from shooting stars was how they would stop on a dime, zigzag a bit, and then shoot off into an entirely different direction at the same speed with which they had seemingly entered the atmosphere. After a couple of months of constant sightings, I began to feel overwhelmed. It was as though I had opened a portal of sorts and I could not close it. My original youthful curiosity had slowly morphed into a feeling of not being in control, and admittedly a slight fear of the unknown, a bit of dread, if I'm to be honest. Finally, on one of those nights, I felt like something bigger was happening. I had identified what seemed to be at least 15 to 20 crafts which were hovering the property around 2 a.m. and appeared to be descending slowly. Dogs in the valley down by the nearest neighbors, a couple of miles away, were going nuts. Finally, much like how a possum appears to play dead, I too had curled up and admitted defeat. Feeling powerless to the situation, I curled up with my 380 and called it a night. I had seemingly passed the portal of no return out there, and the revelations of discoveries were unsettling. During that same summer, on that same property, I had a very strange experience in broad daylight. I was walking along a small peaceful creek that fed into the river there, minding my own business, when all of a sudden, it was as though a herd of something monstrously huge was barreling my way. To this day, I have never heard anything like it, and hope I never do again. Whatever it was, it must have been moving at the speed of 25+ miles per hour and was moving tire-sized river rocks as though they were pebbles. The sound was beyond harrowing. I'm not kidding. Whatever was moving these 200 to 300-pound rocks was child's play. It had to have been massive. Needless to say, it was fight or flight for me, and fight was no option. At one point, as I was running for my life away from this thing, it was gaining on me quickly. Even if it was the last thing I did, I wanted to have a look at what it was. Instinctually, I guess, I wanted to at least identify and logically associate the thing which had the capacity to destroy me with ease. To my surprise, as I turned, the sound persisted, but it appeared as though whatever was moving the giant rocks to create the almost unimaginable sound was cloaked to the naked eye. It was as though I could see the rocks tumbling beneath the translucent glob. At that moment the noise stopped, and I was awestruck and relieved. Whatever was chasing me had no physical visible form, and it was massive looking back on it. It feels like I was bluff-charged by some mythical creature, knowing full well that whatever it was could have taken me out if it wanted to. I can't help but think this creature was some sort of apex predator. Fast forward 1 year time, I find myself in a place about 2 hours south from the place before. Still very much in the woods, this time with a different vibe, lots of oak trees. Mendocino County. It was at that time in my life in which I was all in the world of high strangeness. I started taking things to the next level. My interest in shamanism and spirituality had extended immensely, and I kept finding myself at the right place at the right time. During that particular stage of life, I had often took it upon myself to try and show others beyond the veil, if you will. One point of particular interest to me was seemingly conjuring unusual activities in the skies so that other people could witness things themselves. One night I was feeling animated to introduce some friends I had met to some oddities in the night sky. It was successful. After a few minutes of focus, it was as though we had manifested some unusual orb activity, multiple white orbs floating above us. These orbs were always fascinating to me because they invoked a sense of something personal, far different than seeing a technicolor craft many, many miles away. After a few minutes of watching these floating orbs in the woods above us, there was an immense flash of bright white light, which lit up the entire sky. It was surreal, like someone turned a daylight switch on all of a sudden. In that instance, there was a burst of energy which seemed to interconnect a bunch of stars in the region of Orion, which can only be described as a technicolored network of lights, lasers maybe. A few seconds later, I heard something stirring up at the top of one of the mature oak trees behind me, something that sounded to be the size of a small child, pretty big to be on top of a tree. The minute at which I noticed it, it swooped down at me in a highly unusual flight, making the strangest whooshing sound I will never forget. Whoosh, whoosh, gaining at least 10 to 15 feet every whoosh. During its glides toward me, it uttered a sound I can only describe as a child giggling maniacally. The giggling and whooshing got louder and louder until whatever this was ran directly over my feet. As it ran over my feet, which I both felt and saw, it brought with it a sort of strange, iridescent glitter aura, almost how a fairy is depicted in cartoons. After crossing my feet, I saw what looked like black webbed feet kicking up dust, pitter-pattering off in the distance. To this day, I cannot explain what I experienced on those occasions, and I don't think I ever will be able to. Perhaps that's the point. My thoughts are, however, that we live in a world within a world. There are flowing landscapes of dimensions before us at all times, and perhaps what we think of as most real may just be the thinnest and most superficial layer, a product of a kind of mental conditioning that allows us to comfortably define reality, a coping mechanism of sort that aids us in our processing of things, so that we can trick ourselves into thinking that we know what is going on, a survival mechanism. I don't think that we can define reality as much as we can try to interpret it. Perhaps, even out there in the woods, we find ourselves traversing networks of interdimensional landscapes. All right, folks, there's the encounters. Let's jump into some video clips. The first video clip is a group of boaters out on a beautiful summer day. They come across this island in the middle of the water. What they see as they are approaching the island, which the island is uninhabited. It's no any kind of camping, whatnot, is a very large bipedal creature running across and hiding in the woods. Check this out. All right, folks, you guys decide. I am not going to give you what I think, yes or no, real or not. All I will say is that it is very large. In comparison to the trees, you can almost get a scale perspective. Yeah, it's real interesting. The second video clip we have here is a group of friends and family members just hanging out in their remote backyard, and they're just filming, having fun on a swing, whatnot. After they're done having their fun and they review this footage, they see a very strange crawler-like creature in the background. Here's that video. Man, that is chilling. Can you imagine just having the time with your friends, family, just hanging out, reviewing that footage and seeing that in the tree line? Well, you don't even know it's there. That's how close these creatures can get. Once again, you decide, real or not. I don't know. I wasn't there, but it is chilling either way. The final video clip of this is a gentleman had put a camera on his dog. Apparently there had been sightings of a Bigfoot in the woods. He put a camera on his trained dog, let the dog go, proceeded to go walk behind the dog, and this is the footage that guy caught. That's the story behind the video. I don't know. I wasn't there. Once again, it's not my video. I'm sharing it with you, but that's the story behind this video. Check it out. All right, folks, that was today's early morning, middle of the night bonus upload. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you, and I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. After all, it is your support that helps the channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a chance and a place to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and our friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.